You are a good person. Let's start there. You believe in fairness, in kindness, in the quiet dignity of doing the right thing even when no one is watching. You were taught that humility is a virtue, a noble quality that signals strength of character. You were told to be patient, to wait your turn, that the world has a natural sense of justice, and that your hard work, your loyalty, and your quiet dedication would eventually be seen and rewarded. You were told a beautiful lie, and that lie is the source of a quiet, deep, and constant pain that you have likely mistaken for a personal failing. It is the pain of being overlooked, the agony of being the good guest at the party of life. You arrive on time, you don't cause any trouble, you have pleasant conversations, you help clean up afterwards, and you leave without anyone truly noticing you were there. You are reliable, you are decent, you are invisible. You watch as others, who seem to play by a different set of rules entirely, the louder, the bolder, the more demanding, are handed the very things you have so patiently earned: the promotion, the recognition, the relationship, the respect. And you retreat into your quiet virtue, telling yourself that your reward is in the nobility of your character, while a voice deep inside you screams in silent, desperate protest. That voice is the real you, buried alive under a lifetime of shoulds and be nice. That voice knows the truth. It knows that the humility you've been sold is not a virtue, it is a cage. It is the most sophisticated and cruel system of control ever devised, because it convinces the prisoner to lock his own cell door and call it morality. There was a man, a brilliant engineer at a competitive tech firm. Let's call him Arthur. He was a masterpiece of humility. He arrived earlier than his colleagues and left later. His code was elegant, clean, and always meticulously documented. He never boasted in meetings. Instead, he would often credit the team for his own innovations, believing that a rising tide lifts all boats. He saw his manager, a man of far less talent but far more ambition, take credit for his work time and time again. Arthur would feel a sting of injustice, but he would swallow it, telling himself that the quality of the work was its own reward and that the truth would eventually surface. He was playing chess in a world of street fighters. A major project came up, a flagship product that could define the company's future. For 6 months, Arthur was the soul of that project. He solved impossible problems in the dead of night. He mentored junior developers. He sacrificed weekends. He was the architect of its success. The final product was a triumph. When the time came for the company to appoint the new head of innovation, a position created specifically to lead this new division, it was a foregone conclusion in Arthur's mind. He had not just earned it. He had created the very throne he was meant to sit on. He felt a quiet, humble pride. The announcement was made at a company-wide meeting. The promotion went to a charismatic salesman from another department, a man who didn't know the difference between Java and JavaScript, but knew exactly how to craft a narrative of his own indispensability in every conversation with the senior executives. He was a master of perceived value. As the room applauded, Arthur stood there, and the floor fell away. It wasn't just disappointment he felt. It was a profound, systemic shock, as if he had discovered the law of gravity was a lie. All of his work, his sacrifice, his humility, it had meant nothing. He had been waiting for the world to recognize his worth, not realizing that the world doesn't recognize worth. It only recognizes power, and the power he had given away, piece by piece in the name of being a good and humble man, had just been used to build another man's kingdom on the foundations of his own silent labor. This is not a tragedy, it is a diagnosis. The pain Arthur felt is the pain of naivete. It is the pain of someone trying to win a game without ever understanding its fundamental rules. 500 years ago, in Florence, a political advisor named Niccolò Machiavelli wrote a dangerous little book. It has been called a manual for tyrants, a Bible for the wicked. But it is something far more important than that. It is a field guide to reality. It is a book that dares to describe the world not as we wish it were, but as it actually is. Machiavelli's core message is not to be evil, it is to be effective. And to be effective, you must first discard the comforting lies you have been told about human nature. The most dangerous of these lies is that being loved is enough. Machiavelli states with chilling clarity that if you cannot be both loved and feared, it is far safer to be feared. This isn't about inspiring terror. Fear, in the Machiavellian sense, means respect. It means the understanding, in the minds of others, that you are a person with agency, with boundaries, and with consequences. The person who is merely loved for their utility, for their easygoing nature, for their constant willingness to say yes. They are loved only as long as they are useful. The moment their utility wanes, or a more useful person comes along, that love evaporates. The person who is respected, however, commands a different kind of power. Their presence is felt. Their no has weight. They are seen not as a resource to be consumed, a tool to be used, but as a sovereign power to be negotiated with. Think of it in your own life. Think of that friend who only calls when they need something. You are loved for your function. Now think of the friend whose opinion you genuinely seek, whose time you feel you have to earn. You respect them. Which one holds a more secure place in your life? The humble person, the good guest, spends their life trying to be loved by everyone, and in doing so, they sacrifice all respect. They become a servant to the whims of others, hoping their service will be appreciated. This is a losing strategy. A woman I knew, a freelance graphic designer named Clara, was a creative genius, but a financial disaster. She was humble to a fault. She would pour her soul into her work, and when a client would ask for endless unpaid revisions, she would agree, wanting to be nice and secure future work. When they would pay her weeks late, she would politely inquire, afraid of seeming pushy. Her clients loved her. They loved her talent, but more than that, they loved her pliability. She was constantly broke, constantly anxious, and her passion was curdling into resentment. One day, after a major client refused to pay a final invoice for a project she had spent 3 months on, something in her broke. She had two choices: retreat into her humility and accept the loss, or go to war. She chose war, but not a war of angry emails, a Machiavellian war. She stopped all communication. She spent a week meticulously documenting every email, every draft, every time-stamped piece of evidence. She then researched the client's major competitors. She drafted a new, perfect proposal for one of those competitors, using the insights she had gained from her project. Then, and only then, did she contact her non-paying client. Her email was not angry. It was cold, precise, and devoid of emotion. It stated the facts of the breach of contract, attached a zip file of all evidence, and gave them two options: pay the full invoice plus a late fee within 24 hours, or she would be forced to sell a remarkably similar, but legally distinct, project plan to their biggest rival, a plan she was sure they would be very interested in. It was a calculated, audacious, and terrifying move. She was no longer asking to be paid. She was demonstrating that not paying her would have devastating consequences. She was no longer the lovable, pliable artist. She was a force to be respected. The invoice was paid within the hour. That day, Clara did not just get her money. She got her soul back. She had learned that her talent, without the willingness to protect it with cunning and strength, was worthless. This is the central truth that has been kept from you. Your humility has been weaponized against you. You have been taught to lay down your arms, to open your gates, and to call it virtue, while the world around you operates on the principles of power, leverage, and self-interest. To embrace this new understanding is not to become a monster. It is to finally become an adult. It is to accept that you are responsible for the defense of your own kingdom, your time, your energy, your purpose, your peace of mind. To do this requires you to cultivate a new set of skills that may feel uncomfortable and unhumble at first. You must learn to speak the language of value, not just of hard work. The salesman who got Arthur's job understood this. He didn't just do work. He broadcasted its worth. You must learn to see every interaction not just as a relationship, but as a negotiation. This doesn't mean being transactional. It means being aware of the dynamics at play. You must learn to wield strategic silence as Clara did, recognizing that sometimes the most powerful move is no move at all, letting the other party's anxiety do the work for you. You must, above all, learn to disappoint people. The humble person lives in mortal fear of letting others down. The effective person understands that to say yes to their own life, they must say no to almost everything else. Every no you utter to a request that drains you is a yes to your own well-being. It is the sound of you building a fence around your own sacred ground. And now we arrive at the heart of it all. The catharsis. The great earth-shattering realization that should bring tears to your eyes. If you feel a pang of recognition in these stories, if you have felt the sting of being the good guest, then the joy is this. Your pain was not because you were unworthy. It was not because you were not good enough, or smart enough, or talented enough. Your pain was the result of a noble and sincere attempt to play a game by a set of rules that your opponents had no intention of following. You were not a failure. You were a gentleman on a battlefield of pirates. And the happiness, the hysterical delight, is the realization that you have the capacity to be a pirate too. Not a pirate who plunders and destroys, but a pirate in the sense of a master of their own ship, a sovereign of their own destiny, who navigates the treacherous waters of the world with skill, with cunning, and with an unflinching respect for their own power. The light desolation you feel for the missed years, for the promotions you should have had, for the respect you should have been given, is real. Mourn those years. They are the price of this awakening. But do not live in that mourning. Because the secret is out. The lie has been exposed. The humility that kept you small and safe and invisible is a garment you can now choose to take off. In its place, you can wear something else. Not arrogance, not cruelty, but agency. The profound, terrifying, and exhilarating understanding that you are not a passive observer of your life. You are its primary cause. You are the hammer, the chisel, and the stone. The world will not give you what you are worth. It will only ever give you what you have the strength, the strategy, and the courage to take. The real humility, the only one worth having, is the humility of the Creator before the vastness of His own potential. It is the awe of finally understanding the power that has been sitting dormant in your own hands, waiting for you to simply have the courage to make a fist. The game is still on, but now, for the first time in your life, you know the real rules. The only question left is, how will you play?